All right, let's break down what makes the bebop scale so useful. And let me show you some exercises that'll help you apply this scale and make it work for you. All right, so most of us know what the bebop scale is, and in this case, I'm going to be talking about the dominant bebop scale. So that's where we've got this raised 7th scale degree on a dominant chord. So we have both the flat 7 and the natural 7. And for the purposes of these exercises, I'll be dealing with F7 concert, which is going to be G7 for the tenor, and you can make the appropriate transpositions for your instrument. I've also got, coupled in with these exercises, some saxophone-specific jazz articulation things that will really transform your playing and your time feel if you haven't thought about this before. Now, I've got another video that goes into depth about the articulation process, the 4-step process, and it might be a good idea to start with that particular exercise before jumping into what I call the bebop scale chord tone pivot exercise. And that's what's going to make this bebop scale really work for you in a multitude of contexts. I like to think of the bebop scale as kind of the connector material. It's not necessarily something that I want to solely use for my solos, even in a bebop context, but it's going to get me from one idea to the next. Now, what makes the bebop scale so useful is that extra note, because this allows for, in a string of 8th notes that is, it allows for the chord tones to then fall on downbeats. It's more symmetrical than a 7-note scale in that manner. Now, that means that the 1, the 3, the 5, and the flat 7, those chord tones will fall right on downbeats if I'm playing a string of 8th notes. Now, the rule is that I've also got to start on a chord tone to play continuous 8th notes and to make that work, and I've also got to pivot directions on a chord tone. Now, that's going to make more sense as we get into the exercise. But ideally, this is, again, going to allow me to connect one idea to the next while conveying convincingly the underlying harmony. Okay, so let's get back really quickly to the articulation aspect, because it's so important that we practice these exercises with the intent of applying them in a contextual and stylistically appropriate manner. That means that the jazz articulation in the context of bebop is super important. And what I mean by jazz articulation is basically we're going to be tonguing on the upbeats. Now, the other aspect that many people seem to fall into is what I'll call finger swing. And that's where we actually change the rhythm of the 8th notes in order to accommodate a swing feel. So I basically like to think about the 8th notes as straight 8th notes, but I let the articulation dictate the swing feel. Now, this was something that took me quite some time to break out of the habit. Now, for example, I might play, or I might have learned to play swing 8th notes like this. So in essence, I've really changed the rhythm, a little too extreme. To me, that sounds a little less experienced. Now, when I play 8th notes, in most all contexts, even in a swing context, I play straight 8th notes. So for example, this is what the scale would be without articulation. Just slurred in straight 8th notes. Now, if I'm going to play swing, listen to what my fingers are doing. Straight 8th notes. I'm really using the articulation to create the swing. So the upbeats are being emphasized by not only tonguing them, but also breath accent. Now, again, check out that other video where I go way in depth about the 4 steps to getting to a better time feel, at least that's more stylistically appropriate when it comes to the bebop genre. So let's dive right into the bebop scale exercise. Now, if I start the bebop scale on the first scale degree, in this case, G for me, all of those chord tones are going to be on downbeats. Now, I can also start that same scale on the 3rd, B, And I'm also going to get all the chord tones on downbeats. I can do it same thing with the fifth. Maybe I'll add in the jazz articulation. And on the flat 7. So I can start the scale on any chord tone, 1, 3, 5, or flat 7, and as long as I keep consecutive eighth notes, I'm going to land chord tones on downbeats. Now, what really takes it to that next level is if I want to make it more interesting than just playing up and down the scale, I can actually change direction as long as I pivot on a chord tone, any chord tone, 1, 3, 5, or flat 7. I can change direction and create more interest in the line and still have all of the chord tones line up on downbeats. So for example, maybe I go from the root, G in this case, up to the third, B, an octave above, and then I change direction and come back down to the fifth, D, and then I change direction and go up to the seventh. Right there, I hit all these different chord tones on downbeats, created a more interesting line, and I have a tangible, clear way to practice that. Now, the following exercises take us through each scale degree and a couple of different options or variations of the scale that utilize starting on that scale degree and ending on that scale degree. Now, in between, I'm pivoting on different chord tones. I'm basically kind of trying to sound like an improvised line that stays in the context of what we're trying to work on, which again is putting chord tones on downbeats, utilizing the bebop scale. So I provide examples starting on the first scale degree, the 1. There's 4 different examples, and then I go to the third and do 4 examples on that. I go to the fifth and do 4 examples, and then the flat 7 and do 4 examples. So if I can play through all of these utilizing the jazz articulation and really emphasizing the breath accent on the upbeats as well, I'm going to be able to create that swing feel while staying stylistically appropriate and learning the connector material that the bebop scale offers, so that when I want to go from one idea to the next, but I really want to communicate that harmony, I'll be able to do that more effectively, efficiently, and coherently. So let's go ahead and do the scale. Play with me. What I decided to do is I do the whole notes at the end of each phrase, and then I give 4 beats rest before I go into the next one. I edited a few times if I had to clear the mouthpiece, just so that it's nice and clear, that you have something really nice to practice with, and you're not guessing when I'm going to come back in. Happy practicing.